Federal Drive is presented by GEHA, Government Employees Health Association, proudly providing health and dental benefits to federal employees and their families. Visit GEHA.com.
For years, the CyberCorps Scholarship for Service program has provided agencies with a steady pipeline of cyber talent. But now the program is at a crossroads as CyberCorps students struggle to find work amid the ongoing federal hiring freeze. Many are now facing the prospect of having to pay back their scholarship. Federal News Network's Justin Doubleday joins me with more info on this situation. Justin, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Terry.
So fill us in on CyberCorps as a whole and the challenges some of the students have faced this year.
Yeah, the CyberCorps program has been around since 2000. It's funded by the National Science Foundation and administered through the Office of Personnel Management. What it does is provides scholarships for up to 3 years of support for an undergraduate or graduate student. And in return, the CyberCorps students agree to serve in government for a period of time equal to their scholarship. So it's really kind of served as a way to pull these cybersecurity students into government right off the bat rather than, having them go to industry, which is kind of the typical pipeline for new cyber grads. And so this program has, it graduates, several hundred every year. It's not huge, but it certainly makes a difference for federal agencies who could use all the cyber talent that they could get. This year, however, the hiring freeze instituted by the Trump administration and some of the government downsizing efforts has really created this kind of bleak hiring landscape for CyberCorps students who graduated perhaps in 2024 or are going to graduate this year or have already graduated this year. Even students who are graduating next year are concerned because obviously there are only so many federal jobs and hiring takes quite a while. So several students and alumni had job offers revoked, internship offers revoked when the hiring freeze went into effect. In some cases, they just didn't hear anything more about a tentative job offer that was on the table. And now they're having to compete for a very, very limited bucket of jobs in the federal government. As we know, the hiring freeze really limits what kind of positions federal agencies can hire for. This has led to the prospect of these students having to pay back their loans, their scholarships rather. They're required to find a federal job within 18 months of graduating. So not a ton of time, and especially now that the hiring freeze is about 10 months in and it's just been extended indefinitely, this is getting concerning for these students.
What are their options at this point? How are they responding to this dearth of opportunity?
Well, several hundred of them, I should say, have kind of gathered together in a group to share more information with each other and most recently reach out to journalists like myself to kind of raise awareness about all this. They are, of course, sharing different tips on, roles that might pop up or, internships that might be available. But mostly they're trying to get in touch with folks in government. The Office of Personnel Management, as I mentioned, administers the program to try to push for some level of flexibility and to try to push for some perhaps deferment on some of that 18-month deadline that I mentioned. And so they've been organized now for several months, really since the hiring freeze started. And these stories, including mine, just came out about the CyberCorps program. So they're trying to really just raise awareness about the situation.
Has OPM responded in any way, either to the news stories or to the students themselves?
Well, up until recently, the students told me that OPM has not had a lot of communication about the challenges that they're facing. They essentially told the students to keep trying to, in one email, get creative with their job search. They've, in sort of a somewhat vague way, loosened some of the restrictions around having to necessarily find a federal job. Perhaps they've encouraged students to apply for state and local government jobs. But the students said that they really haven't addressed the elephant in the room, which is this hiring freeze, which is just creating a complete dearth of opportunities for students who are required to find work within the federal government for the most part. When the stories came out, OPM has now put out a statement saying that they are committed to the success of the scholarship service program. They are going to ensure CyberCorps participants are supported during this time. And when the shutdown ends, OPM plans to issue guidance to agencies encouraging them to fully leverage the program to bring these professionals into public service. OPM also said that they're going to work with the National Science Foundation on a mass deferment of some sort to give graduates more time to secure qualifying positions.
The federal government has developed a cyber workforce, cyber talent strategy. I would assume that this program was part of that. Anybody commenting on how that strategy is moving forward as well?
Well, up until the Trump administration, it certainly had been a part of the strategy. And even now, you hear folks like National Cyber Director Sean Cairncross say, hey, we need more talented cyber and technology professionals in government, and we need to find ways to do that. And CyberCorps has certainly been a piece of that national kind of cyber talent strategy, or the cyber talent strategy to bring folks into government. The challenge is that this whole push to bring more cyber talent into government is up against a much bigger issue of the hiring freeze and some of the changes that the Trump administration has made to the federal workforce, cutting positions rather than growing most agencies. And so those two things are a little bit at odds. No one within the Trump administration has directly addressed that, but the scholars certainly see the kind of irony in that folks are saying we need more cyber talent when you have this longstanding pipeline of talent that is now effectively being cut off until hiring really opens up again.
You talked to a number of these students. What kind of stories did they share with you about the impact of this disconnect?
Well, it's been discouraging, to say the least, for a lot of them. Many of them come from different backgrounds. Several were former military service members. Others had pivoted from a medical degree into a computer science degree. Others were just students who were going through and learned about the CyberCorps program and decided, hey, I'd like to serve my country. And that was one of the overarching commonalities between all of them, is they all mentioned that they had a desire to serve, to give back to their local communities, to their country, to secure critical infrastructure and work for the federal government. Obviously, they have to in return for these scholarships, but there seems to be, it's not just sort of a quid pro quo. They seem to have this higher sort of calling here that they felt by participating in this program.
And so what resolution are they hoping for at this point?
Well, they said that the commitment to have a mass deferment is a good first step, but many of them said that this doesn't address the larger problem of the federal government is simply not hiring people into many of the positions that they previously were, especially cybersecurity and IT type positions. And for the jobs that are open, many of them require much more experience than a recent grad would have, or at a higher general schedule level than a recent CyberCorps grad would have. And so that doesn't address the big picture issue. The mass deferment doesn't. So what they're hoping for is it's an evolving conversation, but some level of flexibility with how they can complete their service requirement, whether it's just because the federal government is on a hiring freeze indefinitely, whether that's just ultimately canceled. That might not happen, but if it doesn't, perhaps they could work for a federal contractor instead of having to work directly in a federal position, or they could have more people go and work for state, local, critical infrastructure rather than having to secure a federal position as they have to do in most cases. So they're hoping to have a conversation with OPM and the National Science Foundation about some flexibility in meeting their service requirement in the long run.
That's Federal News Network's Justin Doubleday. Justin, thanks for bringing us this story. Much to watch here.
Yeah, thank you, Terry.
You can find his story at federalnewsnetwork.com.